Jeez, Tiz. What is going on with your face? Every time. He gets me every single time. But one of these days I will eventually beat Tiz, but as much as I would love to tell you more about Stick Fight Club, that'll kind of be breaking the first rule. So instead, let's just crack on with the episode, shall we? So on the last episode, we sorted out the interiors on a few of our shops here. We did the iron shop, the bakery, and the bee shop. And I did also ask in the comments for some ideas for names, because I'm terrible at naming shops. So we had a bunch of cool suggestions for both of the shops that need a name, and I've finally chosen. So this one here is going to be the Bee Warehouse, which was suggested by Aaron Herdman. And basically, I think considering what's actually going on in the back rooms there, that's probably not such a bad idea. And there may have been a death or two of some bees last episode. And the iron shop, we're actually going to be calling Ironbeards, which I think sounds fantastic. Sounds a bit like a pirate captain's name as well. And that was suggested by Sliding Architecture. So thank you very much for your name suggestions. There'll be plenty more naming things that need doing. So do get your thinking caps on for the different shops. So in between episodes, I decided I was going to torture myself. And I decided on stream to start building a diagonal building. But not only is it diagonal, the top bit here is actually 4 wide. So I've been messing around with a diagonal roof and having a thoroughly wonderful time. By which I mean, I'm going to run away from this building for now. It may not be here when we come back later, and we're going to go work on another interior down this end of town. So a few episodes ago, we mentioned we wanted to turn this into a flower shop, and I think that's what we're going to do today. Flowers, foliage, and all things along those lines. We might even get some of the sort of nether flower type things in here, because we do actually already have farms for those. But the main focus of this shop is going to be the 2-tool and the normal flowers. But there is a slight problem, because although we have our 2-tool flower farms down here, so we do have 4 of them, we don't really have any of the smaller flowers, and our flower box itself has only got 2 flowers in it, so we definitely need to go do a bit of exploring beforehand. So because of a bit of a quirk of Bedrock, what we can do is we can actually farm the smaller flowers. So if we get one of the smaller flowers, like this, when we bone meal it, we actually get more of the same flower, and this works regardless of what the small flower is. Obviously, apart from wither roses, which is a bit of a shame, but we can find those another way. But what this means is all we need is one of each flower type, and then we can actually get everything we need, although we do need to design a farm for it too. So first things first, let's go on a little bit of a mission and try and collect all the different flowers. Well, thankfully, we didn't have to go too far. We have managed to get one of every single flower, or at least one of every single flower that we need. So now, I guess we just need to figure out how we're actually going to farm them. So that probably means jumping over into a creative world briefly. And over here in our messy creative world, Professor Beardstone is here to work out some redstone. Let's do this. So first things first, science. What do we know? We know that if we bone meal flowers, we get more flowers. The more bone meal, the more spaces it fills. That's good. Next question, what kind of area can we do? They do go up, and do they go down? Doesn't look like they go down. Maybe I just need more space for it to go down. Or maybe it's because it's dirt. Let's replace that with grass. Okay, so they do go down as well, but they only grow on the grass. So experiment number 1, how far do they actually grow? If we keep spamming this, what's the furthest reach they've got? So this was our starting flower, and from that pattern, we can see that you can go up to 3 blocks on either side. So that means ideally we want a 7x7 platform to get the most out of this. Experiment number 2. Does that still have the same spread when it's further up? Why is it not working? Apparently, when it's 1 block above and there's nothing on the same level, it won't spread. Oh, no, it does spread. So it appears when the block's a bit higher, the rates are much slower. We're potentially getting through a lot of bone meal here, and we've only grown 1 additional plant. However, if we bone meal this one, as we can see, it works absolutely fine. So going down, not a good move. Experiment number 3. Do we have the same problem when things are going up? No, we don't. Oh, wow. Okay, so that was actually loads of plants. I'm going to repeat that experiment. Experiment number 4. A repeat of experiment number 3. Yep, safe to say, having one that's sunk down and growing the top ones is definitely a good way to do it. So the question is, if that's how we're going to have our platform, it means we're going to need to bone meal the block at the bottom here, but how are we going to get rid of the actual plants? Experiment number 5, the shifting floor. This could work because we can do that, and then of course they will break, and every time it breaks them, we can then collect those with a minecart hopper or something underneath. So yes, that works, but it does of course leave 3 areas here where we can't actually farm any plants. Is that really going to matter? I mean, we're getting quite a lot as it is. We could even just put glass over it like that. Is that going to do much to the rates? No, it still seems fine. To be honest, with the amount of flowers this is getting, I think this is probably going to be fine. We can, of course, speed up the hoppers just by removing a few of these items. And in fact, if we just have 2 items in the hopper clock, you can see how quickly this can actually produce roses. That is amazing. So I'm just going to turn that off for now because that's making loads of noise, but I think that is going to work. We're just going to need to work out a collection system for underneath, which, to be honest, minecart hoppers is probably going to be our best bet. And of course, we need to work out a timing system to make sure the bone meal alternates with when the floor is shifting. The next question, I guess, is how many of these farms do we actually make? Because there are about 10 or 11 different plants, but I think with that many moving pistons and moving parts, if we were to create a tower of these, for example, it's just going to lag out the server, and that's no good for anyone. But what we could do is maybe just build a couple of them and then have, if we had a trapdoor or something in the top, we could literally just swap out whatever plant is in there, and whatever we put down is obviously what it's going to grow. And that's going to definitely save on lag, save on resources. And I would imagine once we've run this farm once for each flower, we're probably never going to need it again anyway, to be honest. So instead of designing the rest of the farming creative, we're going to do what we do best and hop straight back over to the truly bedrock world. And then we're going to grab our redstone box and we're just going to wing it. Well, there's a creeper at my entrance. Jeez. We've got the flowers we need, and I need to grab some redstone bits and bobs. So what do we have in here? Well, we have a massive amount of dispensers left over from the TNT machine, but we don't have enough pistons. We don't really have much of anything. So I'm going to potter around. I'm going to grab everything that we're going to need in order to build up these farms. And then we're going to head over to the industrial area because I think it makes the most sense to actually use one of the empty rooms we have over there. And in fact, I think we've only got 1 floor left, so this might actually complete tower number 2. That'd be nice. We're loaded up with supplies, and over here you can clearly see the empty floor we're going to be taking up. We've even still got some holes at the top here where we haven't put the glass in yet. So I think this is going to be a really good area for us to put some flower farms. And in fact, we might even be able to get 4 in here. We could have sort of 1 in each corner and then just run all of them only when no one else is online. But running just a couple when other people are online won't cause any issues. I just need to work out the best way of doing this because I need to maximize the use of space and ensure, of course, that I'm chunk aligning things because we're going to have hopper minecarts going around to collect everything up. So I'm going to use some cobbled deep slate to mark out where the edges of the farms and things are going to be, and we'll figure it out from there, I guess. So what do we want? So the depth of the farm is going to be 1 piston there, and then we're going to have 5 blocks of grass and then a space and then another piston there. So that's where the farm's going to come out to in regards to the wall, and that'll leave enough space for redstone over there. We can probably also put the hopper clock in this corner here, which means we're going to need to go 7 blocks that way, I guess. In fact, we only want to go 5. I have decided to do the platforms slightly smaller than we did in our test examples, just because I'm a little bit concerned it's going to produce too many flowers for our hopper minecarts to actually pick up. So in theory, I think what that means is if we put the chests here, that should actually be absolutely fine. In fact, what I'm going to do is put the chests this way round, and then we'll put hoppers into the back of those. Although I don't think we're going to need hoppers all the way back, so let's just platform the rest of this out. So this platform here is where the minecart rail is going to be and where that's going to be going around, but I think that there is the center point of the farm. So if we, for example, were to block this out and do the same on this side, we're probably going to need to remove a bit of this to get some of the bits in underneath, but that is pretty much it. And then we're just going to have pistons either side that shake these bits of ground. In fact, these bits at the back here aren't even going to be here. So in order to power the rails without locking up the hoppers, we're going to have to put the redstone right back here, which does mean that we're going to end up with a bit of a rail going around the back here, but that shouldn't be too much of an issue, I don't think. So let's just get the rest of this rail in place. In fact, I don't think that's going to work because we're not going to have space to wrap things around. So we might have to just stick with 2 hoppers on each side. Hopefully that'll be enough. So we'll pull the redstone blocks forward a notch. And there we go. That should sort the rail out fairly straightforward. And let's put that back. So to bone meal the flowers, I think we're going to put a dispenser right about there. And then to fire it, we'll have a pair of observers. We will, of course, put an on-off switch on this, but that should do the trick for now. But I would imagine the simple addition of a sticky piston there with a lever on top. There we go. So that'll enable us to turn the farm on and off. Perfect. Although, to be honest, because I need access to this and I need to be able to refill it, I might actually be better off doing this a level higher. And actually, by doing that, I think if I was to put a sticky piston here... Yes, look at that. We'll get access to where the flower sits. So that means that we can easily change the flower. Perfect. Let's just sort this out a little bit better so we don't end up messing with the hoppers. So that's good. That gives us access to the flower. However, what we do need to do is make sure that these aren't constantly doing what they're doing currently. So we need to make sure we put an off switch in for these as well. Let's try. Why can't I? There we go. So if we put a sticky piston there with a redstone lamp on the back and a lever on the ceiling. So that will enable us to turn the farm on and off. Perfect. What would also be nice is if we can actually link this up and have this turn the clock on and off as well once we get to that stage. We'll kind of see how this layout goes, I guess, because it is quite compact. Next step, let's get the pistons in for these platforms. So there's 2 on either side. And then we'll just block up these holes and put the center bit in made of glass. And we don't need to worry about leaving a hole in the top here now because we can actually swap out the flower down below. So that's quite handy. The glass is in, and what I've actually done is made a little change over here. So instead of having the piston pushing in the observer from the side, it's actually doing it from the bottom now. So it pushes it out of the way when it's off. And then with one lever flick, I can pull down that and turn it on. And at the same time, it also pushes up the dropper. So when it's open, I can still change the flower. I've also slipped in a small hopper there just for a little bit of extra bone meal, but I can't actually load the farm with more than 14 stacks at a time, which shouldn't really be a massive issue because that's going to give us plenty of flowers at a time anyway. So the next thing to do is to get these powered. So how are we going to go about this? We have to remember that when that goes down, that's going to be flashing all over the place, so we're probably going to need glass there just to skip the redstone dust across the top. In fact, just to be safe, I'm going to loop it round the back there because we don't want to have any potential problems. Maybe unneeded? I don't know. I'm not a redstone guy. So what else do we need? Let's get some redstone dust down here. And on the back side here, we'll just power them from above just so we lose slightly less flowers to up the top here. But we're definitely going to lose some when the thing's running. But that's not too much of a problem. I think on this side as well, what I will actually do is power them from above. Because that way, we're not going to have the problem of this clashing with this. Especially if we turn that into a repeater. So that should solve any sort of potential clashes over here in theory. Yep, perfect. So that redstone isn't setting off our pistons down here. So in theory, this should be all we need. If we power this side, it's going to fire them pistons. And if we power this side, it's going to fire those. So if we put a hopper clock down here, in theory, that should work exactly how we want. So the last thing we need to do is just put some items in here. Let's just chuck those in for now. And that should shift our floor. Excellent. Look at that. So in theory, the farm should actually work as intended now. If we just load up some bone meal in here and actually flick on this lever, then that should do the trick. So let's get this loaded up with bone meal, turn on the clock to shift the floor, and then turn this on. And hopefully, we're getting many, many flowers. I'm seeing lots of green particles there. Yes, look at that. Excellent. I guess the question is going to be, can the minecart keep up with it all though? And I think also if we were to put a roof on it here, that shouldn't stop the growing, but it should stop them from flying out and landing on this back shelf. There we go, much better. Minimal wastage. And we've got plenty of flowers coming into the storage. This is working a treat. How is the bone meal holding out? Not too bad at all. Okay, it's been on for about a minute or so. We've already got a good couple of stacks of flowers. There's probably a lot more actually in the cart, I'd imagine. Yep, that is already completely full, which means it definitely can't keep up. Which means we probably need 2 carts. Is there a way we can do that? So now hopefully that's going to be more able to actually keep up with the flowers up the top. Let's give it another try. So this is the view inside one of the hopper minecarts. It's still not able to keep up, but it's definitely doing a much better job than it was the first time round. And this side is not awful. It's kind of, yeah. I reckon after about 5 minutes, they're not going to be keeping up anymore. But with the amount of flowers it's producing, this really isn't going to be too much of an issue. But it does its job, and I like it. I do, however, just want to put in some lights here so you can see what's going on. In fact, that one there is probably not a good idea because that's going to keep flashing at me, isn't it? But I definitely want to put a light on this one here. There we go, much nicer. The next thing I need to do, however, is to make this whole bit look a bit nicer and decide how many of these I want. I think I'm definitely going to reflect one and put another one here, but I do wonder if just the two is going to be absolutely fine for me, to be honest, because it's, well, as I say, it's producing a lot of flowers over here, and especially with us easily being able to swap them out, it should be fine. Oh, as you can see, the minecarts are probably full now because it's not picking up any more of those flowers over there, and the bone mill situation is, yeah, okay, that's pretty much empty now compared to what we did have in there, so we should be all right in regards to entities and having too much floating around. They are going to get picked up over the next couple of minutes and deposited where they need to go. I think what I might also do is create just a storage area over here for all the different plant types so that we can empty out the farm when we switch out the flowers, because we don't really want them all getting too mixed up. It's going to be a lot easier to control if we do it like this. In fact, I think what I might do is actually add a few more items to this just to slow the speed of the farm down, and that should actually allow the minecarts to keep up with it in future. And I'm also going to move how I do the storage over here. I think I do want to push it back a little bit. So I'm going to spend a bit of time getting this looking nice. I'll build up the other farm as well, and hopefully when I come back, we'll have this looking absolutely fantastic and used, as opposed to just empty and horrible like it currently is. Well, it certainly doesn't look empty and unused anymore, but it also doesn't look fantastic. But it does the job, and you may notice we have a few extra flower farms here as well, because although we already have 2 tall flower farms over in our cave base, kind of made sense to have some over here as well. So I've got a second unit in here, which is exactly the same as the first, and in fact I'm going to turn those on because we have been running them while they've been here, and we've been collecting ourselves bunches and bunches of flowers. They're the ones we've actually got running at the moment, I believe. But we have been filling up some of them, and I've also used some just to decorate the area around here a bit. Nothing too fancy, I just wanted to fill the space and make it not look empty when I arrive here to actually use the farms. So the 2 tall flower farms are very similar to the ones we have at the cave base. However, I've done them slightly differently in that I've put the dispenser at the top, and this prevents us from actually losing any flowers from landing on top of it, which is nice. But we can turn those on individually as and when we need them, and of course we have our 2 individual ones. If we go around this side, we can actually get upstairs as well, just for a slightly different view, but mainly so we've got access to the bone meal boxes for the 2 tall flower farms. From up here though, we can also look down at the flower farm and see it in action, which is marvellous, and we have slowed it down. It's now running at about half the speed they were previously, but this does mean that the minecarts can actually keep up, which is nice. Overall though, pleased with how this has come out. Definitely going to help us with our flower shop, which, well, I was hoping to get done today, but sadly we are actually out of time for this episode. This has taken longer than I expected, but then we did do a lot more than I expected. I was just going to make a small flower farm in the top of the shop initially, but I think this is going to work much better for us in the long run. So if you did enjoy today's episode, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and all those things that YouTube likes, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye now.